I am Tanikalchana Monisha. May I know your name and age, please?
I am Archana, age 23.
Today I am going to perform cardiovascular examination for you. Is that okay for you?
Okay.
Thank you. Estimating patient JVP is the first step in cardiovascular assessment. JVP is best assessed from the pulsation in the right internal jugular vein.
Focusing on right side to identify the external jugular vein and internal jugular vein.
Looking for JVP
the
pulsation.
oscillation point along the sternomastoid muscle between the clavicle and just posterior to sternomastoid.
Measuring the association pulsation of right internal jugular vein.
2 cm ruler is extended to make a right angle that establishes the true vertical and horizontal line. One edge of the ruler is at the oscillation of the JVP pulsation, recording the vertical distance of the ruler. This measurement identifies the JVP. The normal JVP is 3 to 4 cm. This step allows to make an accurate measurements of the JVP that is important in assessing the intravascular volume status in euvolemic, hypervolemic or hypovolemic patients.
Assessing carotid artery.
Assessing carotid pulse. Palpating to assess the amplitude and contour of carotid upstroke. Auscultating for presence or absence of bruise from turbulent blood flow. Inspecting and palpating both right and left carotid arteries should be avoided because it leads to reduced blood flow to the brain. Assessing carotid pulse provides the valuable information about valvular heart disease and especially useful in determining the aortic insufficiency.
Beginning my heart examination by palpating the chest wall for any heaves or thrills.
Palpating the chest wall for heaves or thrills using the finger pads. Checking for thrills by pressing the ball of the hand firmly on chest.
Identifying apical impulses.
Feeling for amplitude of the apical impulses, it's usually small. Apical impulses suggest ventricular dilation. Sustained tapping impulses suggest left ventricular hypertrophy.
Feeling for right ventricular impulses at lower left sternal border.
Right ventricular impulse is felt by placing one finger in the third interspace and additional fingers in fourth and fifth interspaces. Feeling for the right ventricular impulses in epigastric while the patient is breathing in.
Doing auscultation.
For auscultation of the heart, diaphragm is better for high-pitched sounds like S1 and S2 and bell is better for low-pitched sounds like S3 and S4. Now beginning to listen in the aortic area at the right second interspaces, noting cardiac rate and rhythm. Normally it is 60 to 100 beats per minute, identifying S1 and S2 in the aortic area. Here S2 is usually louder than S1. Also in pulmonic area, S2 is louder than S1. Now listening to pulmonic area to identify the inspiratory splitting of S2. The inspiratory splitting of S2 has two components. The first component A2 comes from the aortic wall closure and the second component P2 comes from the pulmonic wall closure. This splitting normally occurs in inspiration. In expiration, these two components are fused. While moving to the third interspace, tricuspid and mitral areas, S2 diminished and S1 gets louder. Using bell of the stethoscope, listening to the lower left sternal border in left, fourth and fifth interspaces, then listening to apex. Heart murmurs differ from heart sounds by their long duration. To detect heart murmur, we should assess its timing, shape, location of maximal intensity, radiation, and pitch and quality. Systolic murmur. Systolic murmurs are typically mid-systolic murmur, pansystolic murmur, and late systolic murmur. Mid-systolic murmur begins after S1 and starts before S2. Brief gaps are audible between the murmur and the arch sound. Pansystolic murmur starts with S1 and stops at S2 without a gap between murmurs and heart sound. Late systolic murmur usually starts in mid or late systole and persists up to S2. Diastolic murmurs may be early diastolic, mid diastolic, or late diastolic. Early diastolic murmur starts immediately after S2 without a discernible gap, then usually fades into silence before the next S1. Mid diastolic murmur starts a short time after S2. It may be fade away and merge into a late systolic murmur. Late systolic murmur starts late in diastole and typically continues up to S1. Continuous murmurs. Some congenital and clinical condition produce continuous murmur. Continuous murmur begins in systole and extends into all part of the diastole, but it is not necessarily uniform throughout. Crescendo murmur grows louder. Decrescendo murmur grows softer. Crescendo decrescendo murmur first raises intensity, then falls. Plateau murmur has the same intensity throughout. To better detect the most subtle diastolic murmur or aortic regurgitations and mitral stenosis, we use two maneuvers. The first maneuver is patient sitting up and leaning forward. This enhances detection of aortic regurgitations by moving left ventricle close to the chest wall. The second maneuver helps to detect the murmur of the mitral stenosis. It is done in left decuppation position.